Lies, lies and lies and more lies. That have been the hallmark of the Modi rule and the BJP government for the last 10 years. For instance, let us look at the false BJP propaganda on economy. What are all the claims? India is the fastest growing economy in the world. It will become the fourth largest or the third largest in say next 5 years or 10 years and so on. Achhe din, Amrit Kal, Suresh Kodoor. What all claims? What are all propaganda? GDP will reach say 5 trillion when the latest claim is by the year 2047. As he is sure most of us will not be alive to question him on that. I am sure he will never ever give 50 days target anymore in his life. He was fortunate that people didn't do what he asked them to do to him after 50 days post demonetization. And what if it doesn't work always? So he will never ever give 50 days. But even the common people start believing such claims that Indian economy is roaring and Achhe din is almost around the corner, it's coming. It's all complete illusion fostered by Modi's PR propaganda and the PR team. First of all, this high GDP growth and a big economy in itself do not mean that the country's common people are benefiting. If realistic inflation rates are taken into account, India's GDP growth is in 23-24 would drop from 7.3 to around 3%. Now, India is a prime example of the fact that big GDP or high growth does not mean prosperous people. The money is not coming to the people. What is the use having big GDP, 5 trillion economy if majority of the people cannot afford to even have 3 times a day meal? So if people cannot afford food, then what is the point in having say 5 trillion economy or this big GDP? Now if you divide India's GDP by its population, that's if you calculate GDP per person, then the story will get exposed. Because India ranks 147th among 213 countries in terms of GDP per capita. So India is in the company of the poorest countries. The truth is that India is home to one of the world's largest poor population. India's ranking in the global hunger index has slipped from 97 out of 118 countries in the year 2016 to 111 out of 125 countries in the year 2023. So as a proof of people's prosperity, the government showcased the increased number of bank accounts. It says 52 crore gender accounts have been created, a number which is equal to half the adult Indian population, 52 crore. Now let's look at these. Deposits in these accounts have a very measly share, less than 2.5% of the total deposits of the bank held by individuals. That is, if the total bank deposit is 100 rupees, all these accounts, these 52 crore Jan-Dhan accounts together is 2 rupee 50 paise. Now, if you take all the savings account, let us say, in the banks, then this 52 crore Jan-Dhan account will account for only 4.5% of the total amount. That's if 100 rupees is the total deposits of savings bank accounts, then it's 4 rupee 50 paise is what all these 52 accounts together hold. Now you can understand the irony of projecting this 52 crore account as people's prosperity. This have been the Modi's claims always. So many bank accounts, everybody got bank accounts. Now what is the average balance of these 52 crore Jan-Dhan accounts? It's 4,227. That's it. And out of that 52 crore account, 4.3 crore accounts have zero money in it. Zero balance. Another claim by Modi government is that they reduce poverty. That's the ridiculous claim. How did they reduce the poverty? Very simple. Redefine the poverty benchmark. So he appointed a committee, Rangarajan committee, when he came to power, and they redefined the criteria that in the urban area, if anyone earned more than 47 rupees a day, and in the rural area, anything above 32 rupees a day will not be considered as poor. So look at that. If you are living in the rural area and if you are earning anything above 1,000 rupees a month, you are no more poor. You can imagine what is the plight of a person who gets only 32 rupees a day. This is how but Modi reduce poverty. Now, how they measure poverty is more absurd. It's not by considering the income or earning. They use, say, 12 indicators that include not having a toilet or a drinking water or cooking fuel and a bank account or a phone. So now you're forced to open a bank account, 52 crore Jan Dhan account, and if you have a bank account, you are no more considered as poor. Similarly, phone. Now phone has become so much a necessity that pretty much everybody will have phone. Now if you consider having a phone means you are no more poor, then why 5%? You may get 0% poverty. This is how Modi and his government is manipulating data and doing this propaganda. Now for example, toilets, that's a big tall gig. That's his biggest claim, correct? Now most of these toilets are either non-existing or not usable. Either the water connection is not there or the sewage line is not there. In fact, the Niti Aayog report itself is forced to admit that 32% of the people suffered nutritional deprivation, 44% of families didn't use good cooking fuel, 30% didn't have proper sanitation, and 41% didn't have adequate housing. This is the level of poverty that's existing in our country. The consumption spending data for the year 2022-23 released recently shows that the rural areas, the average monthly spending of a 4-member family is rupees 15,092 at current prices. Similarly, in the urban area, such a family spends on an average rupees 25,836 at current prices. Now, if you look at a government survey in 2018-19 revealed that the average income of agricultural households was just rupees 10,218 per month. That is less than their expenditure of 15,000 plus. So, in all probability, many of them are heavily in debt. The periodic labor survey of 22-23 said that while regular employees earned about rupees 20,000 a month, casual laborers got just rupees 12,000 per month, and say self-employed earned rupees 13,000 per month on an average. That is, they earn less than what they need to spend to sustain their living. The poor are further robbed by the government's unwillingness to control price rise. Despite promising, we know that what they promised before coming to power about petrol, cooking gas and whatnot. According to the latest government data on consumer price index between 2014 June to January 2024, the prices of cereals and products increased by say 50%, 54%, meat and fish by around 73%, egg by 77%, milk and products by 53%, and oil by 48%, vegetable 48%, pulses and products 82%, and spices by 112%. This is the kind of price rise we are witnessing. All essential food items Healthcare costs have increased almost by 70%. Education become costlier by 60%. This is all government consumer price index. Overall, the general price index has increased by nearly 60% in this period, 2014 to 24. Now, even there is the government's direct role in increasing prices in the case of petrol and diesel. Although the prices of crude oil has fallen by say 18% between say May 2014 and February 2024, domestic price of petrol has only increased 35% and diesel by 62%. This because Modi government has proposed heavy taxes and duties, thus keeping this price always high. If there is no election, Modi claims companies are deciding the price. If there is an election, then he decides. We would love to have elections, say every month, so that the petrol and diesel and gas prices will stay where they are. Indirect taxes, which the poor pay every time they buy something, that is what actually contributing to 2/3 of government revenues in India. While the top 10% of the rich, with more than half the national income, contribute only 1/3 as direct taxes, say income tax. In fact, the people of India are being mercilessly squeezed by raging inflation, persistent joblessness, and low incomes. Even as the corporate world, big traders and landlords are thriving, are reaping super profits. That is the Amrit Kal for corporate, not for the common people. See, in 2022, the richest 10% of India's population took away 57% of the national income, while the poorest 50% could get only about 13%. So, according to the World Inequality Database, India is one of the countries where inequality is worst. So, if you really look at, if you are the bottom 50 people out of total 100 people in the country, and if the total income is 100 rupee, the bottom 50 people are getting only 13 rupee, while the top rich 10 people took away 57 rupees out of that kitty of total 100 rupee. That's the level of inequality that's existing in our country. If you consider the total wealth of the nation, then the richest top 10% own almost 67% of country's wealth, while the middle 40% gets around 30%, and the poorest 50% of the people own less than 6% of the national wealth. So the top 10% earns more than 20 times the bottom 50%. So the high growth of economy, 5 trillion, 10 trillion, GDP is not helping the poor for increasing employment or their income, but actually ensuring immense and growing inequality, because its benefits are being cornered by a small section of the elite. So all this talk of 5 trillion, 10 trillion GDP and all doesn't really make any sense for the common people. The persistent unemployment, price rise, the economy is suffering from the lack of demand actually, despite the fact that very large number of people are in the need of better food and other basic necessities of life, but they don't have money to spend. So due to lack of effective demand, there is no investment in productive facilities by the private sector, despite the government giving them all kinds of gifts, incentives and concessions, including a massive cut in the corporate tax and write-offs of almost 15 lakh crore worth of bank loans. But the government, however, refuses to do what it should to help the economy to recover, which is boost its spending. So Modi believes that the government should reduce its own spending and allow the private sector to run everything. This blind belief in neoliberal dogma has resulted in government expenditure remaining at the 10 to 11% of GDP, despite the pandemic and the economic crisis. In fact, expenditure on central government schemes and projects came down from 6.8% of the GDP to 4.9% between the year 2021 and 23-24. Expenditure on PM Kisan, food subsidy, housing, PM Awas, all these spendings have been cut. What should have been done by the government? It should have taxed the rich, obviously, to raise resources and spend the money in providing better education, health, food security, etc. to the common people. It should have boosted industrial investment, creating more and better jobs. It should have controlled inflation by expanding the public distribution system. It should have ensured more welfare spending for empowering Dalits and Adivasis. Instead, it has launched an attack on the people, increasing both their burdens and their exploitation, and done everything to increase the profits and the exploitation of the corporate, both the national and international. This is what Modi is doing is. This is the real truth. The rest is all propaganda and pure lies. So let us strengthen the economy, give relief to the poor, and for that defeat BJP. Thank you.